Right, we have your camera now.
Yeah, can you hear me too?
You're gonna mute it, yeah. Yeah, we need you to mute the tab for the OBS.
Hello everyone, welcome back again. We've got another AMA here for you guys today. With me here, I've got three gentlemen from Shrapnel, which is a FPS blockchain game. I'll let these guys introduce themselves. With me here, I've got Francis, Kelvin, and Mark. Francis, why don't you go ahead and start first?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, so Francis, I'm on the business development team, also help with designing the economy as well as tech integrations.
Awesome. Kelvin?
Hey everyone, nice to meet y'all. Calvin, head of business development at Shrapnel. My background is in traditional finance, investment banking, and hedge funds. But as soon as I read the Bitcoin and Ethereum white paper, I switched over and went down that rabbit hole and never came back.
Awesome. And we have Mark.
Hi guys, my name is Mark Yend. I'm head of marketing and community for Shrapnel, and I've been in the video game business for about 25 years, working on AAA games for Xbox and then later at HBO Interactive.
Well, a star-studded team definitely here for with us today. So why don't we go straight into it? What is Shrapnel? Who is the can you give us a bit more info about the team behind Shrapnel, and what you guys are trying to build here?
Sure. So we use the word shrapnel to mean two things. It's the game. It's the name of the game. It's the world's first-person shooter that's moddable and built from the ground up on blockchain. And we also use the word shrapnel to refer to our studio and our team. So we are Team Shrapnel. We're based in Seattle, Washington, but we have contributors all over the world. And it's been a great journey. We got funding last October, and with 7 founders. And since then, we've grown to more than 30 employees. And we're buying all the dev kits and setting it up, and it's really exciting. We're in prototype phase right now.
Awesome. Okay. Maybe a bit more about what Shrapnel is. So you mentioned it's an FPS game. It's a shooter, first-person shooter. What kind of game modes can we expect? How does it play? Is it a bit like CS:GO? Is it a bit more open world? Is it exploration, survival? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, let me back up and say a little bit more about the team. The
Sure.
team is super experienced. We've all worked on a ton of AAA games. After I spent 11 years at Xbox, some of the new people we've hired have come from the PlayStation studios. They've come from various Xbox studios. Some of them have worked on a ton of awesome shooters like Halo and Red Faction Guerrilla and Tom Clancy's, Ghost Protocol and Saints Row and Call of Duty. So we've got some amazing first-person shooter pedigree on our team. The founders all met at HBO Interactive. We were working with some of the best IP and some of the most high-quality film and television properties in the world at the time. We were working with Game of Thrones and Westworld. We ended up making 2 different VR projects based on the Westworld TV series.
Oh wow!
And one of them won an Emmy. So it's really nice to win an interactive Emmy.
Cool.
It's kind of like the cherry on top of a career selling millions and millions of copies of games, right? So that's really nice. So the team's pedigree is quite great. When I think of your other question about what is the game, what's the gameplay mechanic, it's a first-person shooter with a squad-based mode, and the first game mode that we're focusing on is called Extraction. Extraction mode has come out in some other franchises before. It's hugely popular, and it really resonates with the notion of precious materials on the blockchain, right? So the metaphor for what's in our fictional world is really going to resonate with players who are interested in playing a game that they truly own and playing a game that they can create value, by using their gameplay hours and their gameplay time.
I could chime in a bit about the gameplay and what is Shrapnel. I think my audio was lost for a second there, but hopefully I'm back now.
Yeah,
Yep, you are. Yep.
Great. So yeah, I mean the core thesis of Shrapnel is that it's a moddable FPS, Web3 enabled FPS, right? And we really want to give the fans and the community a chance to express their voice on our platform, which is something that's we see that's kind of lacking in the traditional FPS world, where content is essentially crammed down upon its community. In Shrapnel, the real ethos of what our creator mode is meant to be is a way for the fan base to express their creativity and to co-develop essentially a lot of the content with us to make them feel like a part of the the whole Shrapnel team, the Shrapnel platform, and to own some of those assets as well. So in a high level, Shrapnel is a moddable and ownable FPS created by the community. In terms of the gameplay mechanic, like Mark said, it is an extraction-based FPS. We wanted to fine-tune, the gameplay so that you can't just do whatever you want. Essentially, you can't create Mario Kart inside of Shrapnel. You can't turn off gravity. You can't turn on God mode. The reason is because we find that we constrain 99% of the variables and focus the the community and the players on that 1% that matters, which is content creation, creating maps, creating map objects and skins and vanities and whatnot, then we find that that's leads to potentially a lot better quality control of the content versus giving people infinite freedom. There could be a lot of things that can go wrong with that.
Yeah.
So why extraction? Why an extraction shooter? Because I think that extraction shooters are at the tip of the iceberg right now in terms of adoption. Haven't seen too many of them come out. It leads to a very interesting multi-dimensional gameplay where the difference between extraction shooters and your current slew of battle royales and tactical shooters,
Yep.
which is Valorant or Counter Strike, and battle royale is, call it Fortnite, is the idea that the player has a persistent inventory. So you could think of it as a RPG layered on top of an FPS. In the battle royales and the tactical shooters of the world, your inventory resets every match.
Yep.
There's no value that carries over from one match to another, besides maybe skins and whatnot. And first and foremost, blockchains are state machines that record the permanence of state and state transitions. So we think extraction shooter with a persistent inventory and the ability to grind and continuously stack up and add to your inventory is a really interesting concept that works perfectly with the blockchain. Second of all, we make it interesting in that your inventory is persistent, but maybe not permanent, in the sense that there's a chance that you can lose that inventory as well. So it makes treasure hunting and adding to your inventory even more special and potentially dangerous, because the idea is every match you take whatever is in your persistent inventory, you get to take in whatever you want into that match, and with that, whatever you carry in is the sort of gear or that you are willing to lose.
I
When you
see.
die in a match, you lose that gear. It drops. The skin, the default mode is the skin that you have doesn't drop though, because it's quite precious. You're spending hours on it. It's a custom skin. We don't want you to just create a skin and have that drop immediately. But the default mode is your gear. The gear that you bring in does drop.
Right.
And that just really adds to interesting gameplay elements, and not in that a particular session you have to think about what you did in the previous session. You have to plan things out and what you will be doing in the next few sessions, which really adds to this whole progressive element and dimensionality of the gameplay, right? Because you're no longer playing a match in a vacuum. You have to plan ahead. Maybe this particular match, you're just scouting around the corners and you want to find some loot and get out really quick. And then perhaps that's just to stack some more inventory to where the later matches you go a bit heavier, bring in heavy artillery and heavier gear, so that you can sort of stay to the end and perhaps get even better loot, which is set up sort of loot extraction. And the whole essence of extraction genre is literally load into a map, collect loot that's on the ground, or kill others and take their loot. And we set up a couple of extraction points where you're allowed to get out whenever you want, so you can sort of choose your own risk tolerance, choose your own adventure, essentially, where there's going to be this first extraction point, call it a couple of minutes into the match. This is your chance to get out if you've collected some loot and you don't want to risk staying. And then the next extraction point will be again a couple of minutes later, where there's going to be a lot more wolves in that in that session or that time period, but the loot is probably going to be better. And then so on and so forth. There's probably going to be one more final extraction point where that becomes your esports moment. The final three are on the table, but a lot better loot, but a much higher chance of you not making it out alive. So each match has has different points where you can manage your risk. But the interesting part of the gameplay is that there is risk involved,
Mm,
and there is a persistent inventory. And at every second of the match, and even before the match, you're calculating exactly how much risk you want to take on.
very interesting. That's an interesting mechanic. It's almost like wagering. But how would you balance, if let's say player A is only taking, let's say tier one armor, and
Mm.
player B is bringing on tier three armor, which is much more valuable. And in the it doesn't feel like a fair wager in that sense. Do the armor pieces affect performance? How does that work?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Francis, yeah, you can go into
Sure.
the
Yeah.
details there.
So there will be a small increase in performance in terms of between the tiers of gear. That's the difference will be minimal,
Mm,
noticeable by pro players that are trying to min max, but not noticeable by the common person.
right.
And one thing we've done to ensure that if you're bringing in worse gear than someone else, you're not just going to get headshot straight away and die. Is risk based matchmaking. So if someone is bringing in tier three gear, the people they will spawn around have also brought in tier three gear, and the loot
I
in the
see.
area represents the value that they brought in.
I
So you're
see.
never going to be in a position at the start of a game where you're overwhelmed by the people that are around you. They're massively outscaling you in terms of quality of
Mm,
gear. You're going to
mm,
be around people just like you in the same position as you. And that keeps the fair balance. You can stay later in the game to potentially try and, you know, take their tier three gear from them by killing them, but you run the risk. And as Calvin said, you have to balance that risk yourself and think, is it worth me staying? I have a higher
mm.
probability of dying to them if I stay. And for them, that they're already geared up, they can easily kill you. So it's consistently um, balancing that risk yourself. But when you
Mm,
initially spawn, we've already done that for you.
right. Interesting. And how does the queuing system work? Is it do you kind of go into a game lobby and you kind of queue up for a match, and then there's a bit of a matchmaking process and you spawn? How or is it how does that work?
Yeah, so they'll just be the typical. It's skill based and regional based. There's a lot of parameters that go into matchmaking.
Mm,
We're just adding this little caveat on top where there's the risk based system
mm,
to ensure that people are appropriately matched with what they're willing to lose.
I see.
But that
Very
but
interesting.
that pre-match experience, Francis, I think is worth talking about because that could be one of the most enjoyable moments. Like if you're with your squad, you're choosing your loadouts, you're choosing there's just it's a bit of a social chill time, but also you're preparing for the match.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned squad. It's not exactly a solo. Of course, yes, of course. You can build a team of a squad to go in and raid the place together.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
trying to
So
make
that
all
brings
the different operators' classes have meaning and have gameplay importance. There's an infosec class, there's a sniper class, there's an
I
assault
see.
class. So you can choose your playstyle, and your loadout affects how good you are at that specific role. And it also
Mm,
sets some expectations with your teammates, like you're going to
yes.
do this to help us succeed in the match, right?
Right. That's really interesting. That's cool. Okay. So it's not just a solo kind of a game where everyone is basically the same class, or no class. It's everyone is it's kind of balanced around the squad almost. Very nice.
Yeah.
Um.
Hey, Jared, you were asking about just the gameplay experience, the session experience in general. And I
Yep.
think it's an opportunity for us to talk about the notion of AAA quality and what does that mean.
Sure.
We are using Unreal Engine 5, and Unreal Engine 5 um, has blown away the industry with its rendering quality and its latest features that are major upgrades over Unreal 4. Our team has shipped dozens and dozens of games in previous versions of the Unreal Engine, but some of the new features, like the Lumen lighting system, gives
Mm,
realistic bounce lighting and time of day, so you'll be able to see that and have that affect gameplay. Their metahuman technology really makes your gameplay avatar come to life
mm.
um, in a very realistic way. There's just so many features that allow large map sizes for and very long draw distances. if that's not too technical a term. And the way they have dynamic scaling of polygon count allows immense detail in the map. And so this is all on top of the features that they already have in their content creation and rendering features, like PBR, physically based rendering, so that all the textures and all the rocks and the dirt and the wood of the buildings, it all feels incredibly real. And so when we talk about AAA quality, we're talking about detail in the environment, believability in the physics models.
Mm.
We're talking about the animation system and the bones inside the soldiers, meshes. So there's, and then there's all these larger systems that we will design, like weather systems, or like Calvin said, persistent inventory and things like that. So we're really proud to have a partnership with Epic Games. It's their very first blockchain license,
Mm.
which is fantastic, and I'm so glad that they are supporting developers who want to do this. Um, it's just really great. It's like I think it's the most powerful video game making tool in the world right now.
Mm.
Um, and and we have the first license for blockchain games.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys are partnered with Epic Games, you said.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Sorry, Francis,
And
you were going to add on to that, or was it Calvin? Sorry.
I was just gonna add on a little bit more details about the gameplay that I just remembered in that
Yeah.
in terms of the current thinking, at least subject
Mm.
to change, in terms of time to kill, is that it's going to be somewhere in between, call it a Halo, where you're dancing around each other for a good amount of time and strafing, and a Call of Duty where it's instant headshots, right?
Yep.
Because we know that there's value on chain, and that people potentially could lose their precious inventory,
Yep.
which I would argue makes inventory grinding and stacking even more fun and interesting. It's going to be somewhere in between, where you can get shot, but we give you the chance to respond to that, a way to get out, essentially.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because there's nothing more frustrating than getting headshot at one shot and you're done. You're dead and you drop all your loot. It's gonna be really lots of salty
Yes.
comments and everything. That's
Right.
awesome. Good to know. Cool. I think that pretty much covers most of what the gameplay is like and the mechanics behind it. Let's go on to NFTs. Obviously we have to cover that with how does the ownership of NFTs work? I know you talked about armor, a bit about aesthetics as well, skins. How would the creation process work? Because I know you said this was a moddable game, community owned. How does that look like? And also a little bit about tokenomics and how can I earn from the game?
Sure. So there's a lot to unravel in that question.
Yep.
Let's start on the player side of things.
Yep.
In general, there are two asset classes of NFTs on the player side. There's skins and vanities, and then there's the underlying gear. So, in terms of the underlying gear, like I said before, when you enter a match, the default mode is that the underlying gear drops, but not the skin, which still remains in inventory. But if you don't have the right gear, it just doesn't attach to anything, right? Um, in terms of the gear, currently we're thinking there's three sort of tiers or classes of gear, where you have the standard or base level gear. That is the sort of default gear that you see, in a lot of matches. And if you kill someone and sort of get a or even find that base level gear seated, or on the ground in the match somewhere, you
Mhm.
could take that gear, and if you get out with it alive, you can either put it back in your inventory or you could sell it on our marketplace. Now,
Okay.
we do have a inflationary control to where the total sum of gear brought in cannot is and the total sum of gear uh, that is extractable in any match is going to be always less than the total sum of gear brought in.
Okay.
That's a natural inflation control to make sure that there's no runaway inflation on that base level gear. Another inflation control mechanic is we allow players to sort of take multiple base level gear, call it 5 pistols, for example,
Mhm.
and then break those down and combine those into a higher tier gear.
Yep.
The reason why you would upgrade, you could think of it as breeding, if you will,
Yep.
is to one get a cosmetic difference and advantage. So the gun, the new pistol, your second tier pistol, will have something distinctly noticeable about it. That's maybe it's glowing or it's got smoke coming out of it. And you also get a slight stat increase, not
Mm.
noticeable to most people, but enough to entice you to breed and upgrade.
Yep.
This will only be noticeable to essentially pro players who are mid-maxing. And of course, you could take that concept one further step up and say, hey, we have a third tier of gear where you can combine second tier gear,
Mhm.
break those down into third level gears. So that's basically the earn mechanic. You can take any of those gears and sell them on a marketplace for
Yep.
SHRAP. We will only make markets in the base level gear. The second and third tier gears are peer to peer exchanges, essentially.
I see.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the skin is also a peer to peer market where you can trade skins wherever
Okay.
you want. And we plan to introduce an opt-in hardcore pink slip mode where not only do you lose your gear, but you also lose the underlying the skin attached to it as well.
Oh.
But that is opt-in. It's not the default mode. So I think that covers the player side of things and
Mm.
how you actually earn.
Mhm.
It's true PvP. There's
Yep.
no inflation. It's a zero-sum game there. Now, in terms of on the creator side, there's also a way to earn. So we have creator earn as well. In fact, earning is our general thesis behind earning is if you contribute value to the platform, you tend to earn. That's
Mm.
whether you're a player or on the creator side, or even just someone who's bringing in new players to the platform, or helping playtest maps, or review certain things, and or maybe even just be a general police on the platform. If you contribute value in some way, you will get rewarded for that contribution in one way or another.
Okay.
So in terms of creation, the general idea is you're allowed to create maps, and you're also allowed to create map objects. And the beautiful part about the system is I think we're making strides in the right direction, in pioneering what we call the Lego building blocks of the quote unquote metaverse,
Okay.
where as a map creator, you don't have to create everything yourself. In fact, in the real world, it rarely happens this way. When want to build a house, you don't go cut down the tree. There's a division of labor and there's supply chain, right? So we will, I think what will happen is there's going to be specialization of labor where there's going to be folks who just want to specialize in creating barrels, folks who just want to specialize in, blown up cars or torn down buildings, right?
Mhm.
And then they can brand those assets and put those on a marketplace for map creators to come in and not have to start from zero, but just
Mm.
drag and drop those objects into their maps. Of course, there will be some royalties attached to that and some financial arrangements. But luckily with NFTs, because even the map objects are also NFTs, and then
Mm.
everything in the map, all assets are an NFT. In terms of revenue attribution, that is an easy problem to solve because NFTs lead to programmatic distribution of revenue. So as a map creator, you can come in, drag and drop, create this really lush map, not with Lego building blocks
Mhm.
essentially. And unlike a Web 2 platform where attribution is a black box, say YouTube, there's often a lot of content creators for one video, but one account gets that revenue, and they
Mm.
have to split it in the back end in a black box. in Shrapnel, the content creation process is very transparent, and the revenue attribution process is also very transparent. Now, you may ask, what revenue are we talking about here? Well, we set aside a portion of the of the token supply as a sort of community rewards section, or some people call it emissions. And that reward will essentially, it's like the Bitcoin reward as well. Um, the, the best, essentially, as a creator, you get rewarded your pro rata share of that reward pool depending on the activity. So if your map does well, you get a bigger portion of the rewards pool, essentially. So you're incentivized to create good content that people will
Right.
consume. And
Right.
that's the sort of creator earn element on the creator side. So
Yeah.
hopefully that sums up things in a nutshell.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just
good.
to chime in on some of the economic sections.
Sure.
So one thing we've done is we've made a circular economy, as Calvin keeps alluding to. So any value that people put into the platform
Mm.
can be redistributed to those that are doing value added activities. As he said, if you refer a friend, if you do map curation, so you're going out looking and assessing whether other people's maps are good, there's an ability to potentially earn some rewards there because you are adding value to the platform. And it really lets us create the game alongside the people that are playing it, as opposed to just having this top down, I am the creator, you are the player, we will feed content onto you. It lets us reward the people that are building it with us. And
Yep.
then just for in terms of the price of things, the way we've designed the economy allows us to actually keep the gear sustainable, and it won't end up in an Axie style or Cribata style price where they go up to
Mm.
hundreds of dollars. The game will always be affordable to players that just want to hop on and play.
Mm.
You're not going to be get inflated out of the price range, and you're not going to lose too much value in a deflation out of the price range. So it's
Uh,
going to be a nice just game that you can play. You can sit there and go, I know that my gear is going to be worth roughly this much. It's never going to
Yep.
get too expensive, and it's never going to get too cheap.
And to add on to that, we think obviously that the skins will likely accrue a value. And again, if you want, if you're a person who wants to, risk more, then you will opt into that skin hardcore pink slip mode.
Yep.
We've also tinkered and try to introduce the idea of a free to play element to the game, where you do get a sort of a free random loadout with a cooldown period, and there's a queue to get into the free to play section. That gear is not sellable when you extract with it, but you can put that on um, a sort of a proper character that if you do end up extracting that gear with the proper character, then that gear is finally yours. So, um, and there's sort of ways to lessen that cooldown period on the free to play if you do go and contribute value to the platform, such as play test other maps, or bring in friends, or review, or whatnot. The idea is it's free to play as long as you contribute value to the platform, and I think
Understood.
that's a good solution to solving the free to play issue. So it's like Francis said, the base level gear is going to be very accessible
Mm.
financially to everyone, and we'll make sure that that base level gear will always be accessible. And even for those who don't find it accessible, we have a free to play option.
I see. I see. That's very interesting. I think it's definitely one of the more prevalent issues right now with GameFi in general is the barrier to entry is so high, so costly. And I think
Yeah,
this is definitely a big step in the right
Mm.
direction. So yeah, I'm
thank
very
you.
excited for that. Thank you. Cool. So I have to ask then, when token?
Well, that's like the first question a lot of people ask when they join our Discord. Um, uh, which, by the way, I would encourage everyone to join our Discord and follow us on Twitter. Just shameless plug. Um, so when token. Well, obviously the market has had some events recently. We're gonna but we're fully aware that our project has to continue on its roadmap, um, and that no one can really time the market. So I think what we're going to do is work within the window that we have to just choose the most opportune time. We're going to continue prototyping the game, releasing NFTs to our audience, continue to build our community and involve them in creative decisions and in rewards. And what I should probably say is just token will come soon, and that we're trying to find the most appropriate window. Probably come out. We'll give it time to come out of the bear market a little bit. Hopefully, we all hope that's true.
Yep, all
Um,
of us.
yeah, right. And then, but it won't be very long. So, join our community, enjoy some of the NFTs, some of the contests and the activities, and some of the creative contribution to our game. And token's going to come soon.
Awesome, cool. What kind of use case will the token have? So I think we talked a lot about NFTs and how we can create and add value to the game itself. But what kind of role does the token play?
Sure.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, the token is a gas token on our subnet.
Okay.
So essentially, it serves as a security, budget to pay for gas fees for validators, properly incentivize validators to properly validate,
Yep.
as well as validators need to stake it and potentially get splashed if they are not truthful.
Mm.
Um, Second use case would be for minting, I would say. So anytime you want to mint a player created asset, such as vanity or a map or even a map object,
Mm.
you have to pay the protocol and minting fee. One, to prevent spam and DDoS attacks,
Yep.
and two, because we plan to have everything as on-chain storage, passing on the storage cost to the to the minter,
Right.
essentially. So those are
Right.
components of why there is a minting cost. Um, Third, for general purpose governance, whether it's platform governance and voting for DAO platform type high level features, as well as content governance, which I think we're making strides in the right direction of pioneering that space as well. The idea behind that is there's a lot of content created by a lot of folks, but there needs to be some community governed algorithm, if you will, or a way to upvote that content,
Mm.
and help how the community help curate the content
Yep.
to where most players will get the best set of content when they load up into Shrapnel, right? And the way to do that, we think, is essentially put your money where your mouth is. You can take your Shrap and stake it onto certain maps or even skins, and
Mm.
that will essentially help the map or skin progress and be more visible
I
to the
see.
audience. And the earlier you stake, the more of the staking reward pool that you get. So you're paid to discover content and to permanently, to stake that content for longer periods of time. Um, and then finally, there's the obvious medium of exchange. SHRAP is the one and only token on our marketplace. Everything is transacted through SHRAP. And just a side note there, in terms of minting fees, those are going to be paid in U.S. stablecoin equivalent. We get this question a lot of, if fees are also paid in SHRAP, then if our token runs up, then that prices people out of minting.
Mm.
And the answer to that is it's always going to be sort of rebased in a flat stablecoin fee. So it doesn't matter. It's kind of like gas fees, right? It doesn't matter where the price is. It's going to be volatile. There's always going to be a flat fee paid for minting and whatnot. And lastly, SHRAP is sort of our quote unquote global reserve currency because it is 3 billion hard capped, fixed supply. It acts as a place where value accrues
Mm.
in the entire network.
Mm. Awesome. Sounds good. So one token kind of economy. That's great. Um, cool. I think at this point we've covered a lot of things. Why don't we go ahead and do our first giveaway? Our first raffle.
Cool.
Okay. Let's see who the first lucky winner is. Ace Augustine. Congratulations, you are the first winner of the giveaway. Let's do a second one as well. Might as well. Let's do a second one. Quan. Quan. I hope I'm not butchering your name. Quan. I think it's a Vietnamese name. Congratulations. You're the second winner of the giveaway. So guys, we have a total of 5. 3 more will be given away on our Discord. More info about that later at the end of the stream, so stay tuned for that. Cool.
Great.
Let's move on
Thanks,
then.
guys.
That's kind of fun. I like how you do that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, trying something new. Before that, we were doing best questions asked, but it got a bit messy, so we figured a raffle giveaway would be
Yep.
quicker.
Yeah,
Cool.
super cool.
Okay. Yes. Let's go on to the second half of our AMA here. More kind of bigger picture questions. How's the Shrapnel team addressing security, both game side and crypto side?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things that we're kind of trying to do is innovate on the crypto side because no one's really done that before.
Mm,
So as Calvin's alluded to many times, there's value. It's a zero-sum game. So if you kill someone, you actually take their loot. And say that person is cheating, we know that that's happened because the blockchain has tracked that and it has been recorded in the history. So
yep.
there is potential to reimburse people and also punish people based on what's happening in those games. And it also gives us a new, unique way to track people that might be cheating because some people might have a PNL that is just way too large and impossible to get. And that immediately tells us that they're doing something to exploit the game and that
Mm,
we need to actually do something about that. And in terms of within the game itself,
mm,
the team, like our team, has such a rich experience in terms of multiplayer games and anti-cheat systems there. So that's at the core of kind of what we're doing when we're building this and considering security. And there's
mm,
also the added layer that because there is value at risk, there are legal routes that we can go if someone does technically steal from someone else. So
yep.
there's all these layers of protection that just allow us to secure the game in a much deeper way than kind of has happened in the Web 2 space.
I see. Awesome. What about crypto side? Lately with a lot of Axie Infinity, with the Ronin hack, 600 million, I think it was,
Yes.
that got
Yeah.
hacked. How is it Shrapnel approaching this issue?
Yeah, so first of all, you should do things like audit your smart contracts.
Mm,
You can actually prove that your smart contract is mathematically impossible to make execute a vulnerability. So there's no
mm,
vulnerabilities there. So that's kind of the major thing that we're going to do is we're going to ensure that it is literally impossible to exploit any of the contracts.
mm,
Um, and then there's even beyond that, because there's always some level of uncertainty, even if something is technically impossible. We'll try and do things like make the chain private so people can't actually see the code that they try and execute on, which means there's even less likelihood that someone could, you know,
I
do
see.
an attack on the smart contracts. And with the bridges and things like that, we're going to be using new technology such as Layer Zero,
Yes.
which prevents. So we can have basically minting contracts on both chains that make sure all chains have the total 3 billion supply, which would mean any bridge can't be exploited and end up minting new tokens or have an outbalanced amount of tokens on one chain compared to another. So there's all these new tech ways that we can kind of make sure that the bridges are secure, the network is
Mm.
secure, and nothing can be exploited.
Sounds
Yeah,
good. Awesome.
we want to stay away from committee-based bridging
Yes.
solutions and transition to trust minimized bridging solutions.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So you mentioned bridging. So am I to understand that it's going to be cross chain? Where's the first Avalanche? Was it?
Yes.
Which blockchain?
So
Yes.
we'll be on the Avalanche blockchain. We'll actually be on a subnet, which
Hmm.
allows us to exist on our own kind of unique layer one.
Yep.
This means that we can use our own token for gas, and we can
Yep.
actually subsidize those gas fees. So you can have a very Web 2 experience where you're not actually constantly confirming transactions, paying gas, and having to pay fees to us. So that's really useful there. And also, it means you don't have to share block space. So we can make the experience completely custom for Shrapnel. So you get the benefit of the super fast finality, which in some cases is quicker than in Web 2. And it just feels like you're playing a game. And that's kind of the experience we can craft with that. But in terms of with the bridging, there needs to be a way for people to get capital onto the chain, and we want to make sure that's as easy as possible. So there'll be fiat on ramps as well as bridges from other chains to allow you to deposit onto the subnet, and that's where Layer 0 comes in. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Next question then. Can you tell us a bit more about your unique advisor list?
Sure. We have quite a few advisors, value-added advisors, from all walks of life. A couple notable ones would be, Myth is the Twitch streamer, made Fortnite quite popular, to the Terry Spears of the world, who designed the Division, Ubisoft's The Division franchise, which is arguably one of the first extraction-based shooters out there. So he brings a lot of expertise in the gameplay space. We have Neil Stevenson, New York Times bestseller, commonly known for Snow Crash, which is the seminal book that spawned the term the metaverse, to folks like Derek Kolstad on the transmedia side. He's one of the creators of the John Wick franchise. We got Mike Wilson, who's started Devolver and associated with id Software as well. If you guys don't know, id Software created some of the first FPS games out there. As well as Jeff Hayes on the tech side. He's the CTO of Compound. And we got Jason Hollingshead as a military advisor. He was on SEAL Team 6 and making sure we're keeping things real and realistic. He's keeping things real and realistic. He's lived and breathed the real life first person shooter. Will Yang started the Korea office for Unity, so has a wealth of relationships there. Just in general in the gaming world, we have King Crone from Coin Operating Group, who, believe it or not, was the CEO of Vivendi during the World of Warcraft release of World of Warcraft. So he brings a wealth of old school relationships. Jesper Kidd is a BAFTA award-winning composer. You've probably heard a lot of his music if you've played the Assassin's Creed series. And Jay Chang is really helping us out a lot on the Web3 side in terms of marketing. He's one of the co-founders of Genopets.
I see. Oh yes, yeah. Oh, we actually did have a call with him just the other day. Interesting. Awesome. That's just, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited for the game so far, and this is really a very unique list of advisors. Anywhere from writers, to just game and tech and all these different things. The SEAL Team 6. I mean, doesn't get more realistic than that. So that's really awesome. Very excited for that. Cool. And just kind of wrap things up over here. What can we expect in the upcoming months in the short, medium term for Shrapnel? What's in the works?
Yeah, sure. So in the immediate term, we have an operators NFT drop. It's essentially a PFP series, kind of like a Bored Ape type PFP. It's going to drop on OpenSea June 9th. So
June 9th.
mark that on your calendars.
Yep, June 9th, guys. If you didn't hear that.
That's the current thinking. And it's gonna, it's basically gonna be 5 characters. Each character has a comic book attached to the character that gives a backstory. There's going to be quite a lot of utility involved with each of these PFPs. They're first and foremost rendered in engine, so in the Unreal Engine, which is what we think is quite unique in the PFP space. There's going to be future access to future whitelists and NFT drops, just like the Bored Ape series was essentially, and you can also have access to behind the scenes, early access to the video game as well.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
So
A lot of
that's for the immediate future, and then we're gonna have a gameplay trailer, working with a really awesome team on with a lot of experience creating trailers. That's gonna come sometime later this year, as well as like what Mark said, a token launch at soon as well.
It's
And
also
and
exciting. Yep.
and also on the sort of gameplay side, plan to release creator tools, uh, and and sort of a glimpse of a gameplay where you can sort of load into a map and start shooting things around relatively soon as well.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Definitely lots of things to look forward to, especially that June 9th OpenSea NFT. Awesome. Okay. Um, One last question for you guys from me. How does a guild like Prominence, or I should say Promisphere now, as we've recently rebranded? For those that don't know, by the way, we've rebranded to Promisphere, in line with another side project we're working on. It's a bit early to reveal the details of that, but stay tuned for that. Yes. So how does a gaming guild like Promisphere fit into the Shrapnel ecosystem, the game, and how would that kind of synergy play out?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure. So, Francis, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing we tried to make sure is that anyone can play the game, and obviously guilds are notorious for sponsoring players and allowing players to have, an initial set of whatever it is that allows you to play the game. In our case, it's gear. So we built the concept of an armory out. So what you guys can do is you can sponsor players, allow them to use your gear, and churn a yield on that, and then share that out and redistribute it to your community. So
Awesome.
it's the idea of making it so the game is inclusive for anybody. Nobody shouldn't be able to not play the game based on their monetary circumstance, and they should always have the ability to either do something value added on the platform or find someone who can just sponsor them and give them access to the gear that they need to play the game. That's if they wanted to play the non-free to play version. The free to play version, you can play that to your heart's content, but the relationship is a really nice one as it allows us to access people that couldn't previously play Web3 games or potentially earn from them.
Awesome.
And,
Sounds good.
and also in return, I think it helps add more players to the Shrapnel ecosystem, and it gives your guild members kind of a structure and a sense of belonging once they jump into this strange and dangerous world of Shrapnel. So they'll have a sense of like team affinity, and over time, that type of membership within our community will evolve into an esports type of paradigm, some tournaments and things like that.
Awesome. Very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. Guess one more question here. I'm just thinking about it. How is Shrapnel approaching the question, the issue of kind of onboarding more, traditional kind of gamers into the Web3 space? How are we thinking about, kind of making the whole process very seamless for them?
Yeah, so that is actually one of the core beliefs that we're trying to address. And as I said before, there's no the subnet will be subsidized, so you
Yep.
actually won't have to experience gas fees, which is a huge confliction point for a Web2 user. They'd instantly come on and question, why am I paying to do every single interaction? So there's that aspect. And then the game to play is as easy as just signing up with your email, creating a password and just coming on, playing the game. You will not have to know that you're in the Web 3 space at all. The blockchain just sits in the back end. Now you can opt into the Web3 experience where you're, self-custodying your assets, you're using your MetaMask or your Trust wallet, whatever wallet you decide to use. There is that. But to get the Web2 users on board, they shouldn't have to know, and neither should Web3 users, that they're on the blockchain. The only
Mm.
reminder that you're on the blockchain should be that you've connected your wallet at some point.
Yep.
And it's about just making a game that is fun to play and ignoring the rest of it. Because I feel like that's where a lot of people have this confliction. You won't get Web2 users on board if you don't just have a fun game. That's kind of the key component.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Awesome. That kind of wraps things up, guys. I don't have any more questions. Is there anything else at this point that you guys want to add?
Sure.
I think
If
waste more whitelists.
Ah, yes. We got 3 more whitelists that will be given
Right.
through Discord.
yeah,
Sorry, Calvin.
more whitelist, and if we have a couple more minutes, I would like to share our lore a bit.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So we've teased a bit of it on our socials, but I just want to get into a little bit more detail. So basically, Shrapnel is set, a couple decades in the future, and asteroids going for going for the Earth, but it gets deflected and hits the moon and creates this shatters creates a crater on the moon and shatters the asteroid into a debris field that forms Saturn-like rings around the moon, and these asteroid debris is they're essentially raining down on Earth in this narrow band that we call the sacrifice zone. And from the sacrifice zone, we have private military forces, MEF or mercenary extraction forces, who find the platinum-rich minerals as part of the asteroid debris, and eventually, this zone, the sacrifice zone, gets walled off. So far, so good, and the plot twist really comes when someone finds a unknown material called shrapnel that's deeply embedded in the sacrifice zone. It's got very bizarre profiles, and scientists are essentially just trying to deconstruct it in a lab. Results are quite wild. There's tons of theories being proposed, but nothing's really panning out until eventually a scientist decides to flip a coin next to it and realizes that the 50-50 probability of the coin flip is way off. It turns it's more like 70-30 or 60-40, and this is a startling discovery. And scientists deem this sort of sigma drift. Sigma stands for standard deviation in statistics, and scientists find that it essentially skews the normal distribution curve in one way or another. Upon sort of further discovery, scientists realize that this interacting with the shrapnel compound essentially merges quantum mechanics with classical physics. So, as we all know, what happens in the quantum world is really goofy and doesn't jive well with what happens in real macro world where things are deterministic, F equals ma, right? In the quantum world, there's probability distribution functions. Cause and effect are inverted potentially, and a particle can exist in two places at one time. So the idea of a grand unified theory between quantum physics and classical physics has plagued scientists for the longest time, and we believe that shrapnel is the one particle that unifies the two. Essentially, the bottom line here is we realize that we can use the shrapnel compound to alter or bend chance to our favor. And of course, with this, trillions of dollars are poured into understanding this technology, and wars are waged because of this. And
Mm.
giant corporations are formed from it. And that's the setting of what we see today in shrapnel.
That's awesome. I think every great game needs a really a strong story behind it to really drive the narrative and make it more exciting. That's really interesting. Cool. Awesome. Let's do another giveaway. Might as well. Can we do one more raffle? We'll just give away one more to another winner. Yeah. We have Dylan. Am I saying the name right? Is it Dylan? Cool. Dylan, if you see your name up here, that's you. congratulations, you are the third winner. Okay, and that'll be the last one for the stream. We've got 2 more, guys. We've got a total of 5. 2 more will be given away on our Discord. So all you got to do is come into our Discord. Don't worry, we'll post the details in the chat after this. Our friendly community managers will facilitate the whole process for the raffle on our Discord. So make sure to get on there for the one as well. And yes, don't forget to join Shrapnel's Discord as well to start learning a bit more about how you can be involved and stay up to date with the news. Cool. Let's wrap it up here, guys.
Can I also remind people to follow us on Twitter?
Yes, of
Our
course.
Twitter handle is @PlayShrapnel. So that's where all the latest news comes out every day.
Yep. @Play Shrapnel. Okay. We'll
Yep.
type that as well in the chat. Make sure to follow them. Awesome. Do you guys want to add anything else?
It's been really great meeting you, and
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time and showing your interest in Shrapnel, and we can't wait to get to know your community better.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I know it's really early for you guys. I hope it pays off and is worth your time. Thank you for introducing Shrapnel and all the good stuff that you're building over there with our community. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks
your
for
time.
having us.
Cool.
Yeah.
See you. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you.